before we get into it, let's take a look at the November record. I made a big deal about it, and I set myself up to fail, which forced me to get it right. That's what I do. 15-3 on unders this month. We have 2 more. Hopefully, we'll be 17-3 on unders heading into the final weekend, I believe. Oh, no, maybe 1 more, right? I think week 12 is actually, or week 13 is actually on the 30th. So we do have 1 more weekend of unders. So I guess the record's not totally safe. We could just crash and burn on unders, but it ain't happening. Why? Because it is November. What is November, by the way? It's something I came up with and I thought of, I had a little bit of epiphany. I'm like, I've been doing this for 30 years. It's a grind. By the time you get to week 11, week 12, you don't necessarily see the light at the end of the tunnel, yet you're also exhausted. So I have bad months in November. I had a bad month last year. That's why we popped out November, and it has saved our record. But let's take a look at the real record. It's not incredible, but if you watch this show, it's we get pinched badly on a lot of things here. But, there you go. There it is. What's that, 54%? I mean, we do pick way more than I would like to. If I cut it down, I think I could get it up to the upper 50s, but neither here nor there. I like doing a lot of props for a lot of reasons to help people out with the parlays, and I'm always looking for 6-0. We've had a couple of days like that, so it's the best feeling. So let's start with Woodro Marks. We're going to take the over 64.5. This to me is the best matchup in this game. Easily, the Texans running game against the Bill run defense right there. That's the matchup, the best matchup. The Bills defense gives up the 5th most adjusted yards before contact, 2nd most rushing yards. They give up the 7th fewest receiving yards. So perhaps Marks is highlighted a little bit more in the running game. Over the last 5 weeks, they've given up the 4th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to running backs in the running game only. This is not including receiving work. It's worth a 4.8 fantasy point boost to a team's rushing production, which you could argue that's 48 yards. I'm sure there's some touchdowns mixed in there, but it's probably like a 35-yard boost. The Bills have also, and here's some more hardcore data. I believe Brett Whitefield mentioned this. The Bills have given out the 3rd most rushing yards on explosive runs in the National Football League this year, with the 4th highest explosive run percentage against them. They've also, by the way, I don't think Brett mentioned this, but they've also given up the most forced missed tackles per attempt in the running game in the NFL. Also, 57.6% of Marks's runs have come on man and gap concepts, and his 3.81 yards per carry on those runs. It's not a great number, but it's 22.4% better than his yards per carry average on zone concept runs. So, and the Bills have been bad against everything, but it is a good schematic matchup. And, not for nothing, but Josh Allen in this game last year was only 9 of 30 for 131 yards. So maybe the defense can keep them held down a little bit, keep the game close. And here is the controversial under that I'm taking, that Tom Brawley took the over, and it would be a Christmas miracle if we both won. But Jaden Higgins was bet up to 30.5. I'm going to go under that number at -109 here on DraftKings. I like Higgins a lot, and I see him out there, and his body language is good. He's feeling it. As I mentioned, me and Brett, and I think Tom was there too at the Senior Bowl last year. We were hanging out with the Iowa State receivers at halftime or in between practices, Higgins and Jalen Noel. Greatest dudes ever. Really good dudes. But for this, we are going to go under because number one, he's just one of 5 wide receivers who get snaps and targets, including Christian Kirk and Xavier Hutchinson and the aforementioned Noel and, of course, Nico Collins. The Bills give up the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers lined up on the right side, which is where Higgins lines up most of the time, 45% of the time. Why? That's mainly because of my guy. Not that I've mentioned him being my guy for a while, but when he came out, and a couple of years into his career, I thought he was the best corner in the league. Tre'Davious White has been targeted on only 7.6% of his routes covered. That is the 3rd fewest out of 96 corners playing this weekend. His 0.16 fantasy points per route run given up is the third fewest given up among all outside corners this week, behind only A.J. Terrell and Joey Porter, who are studs. Higgins certainly is a threat to make a big play or two, but we also show this as a slightly negative schematic matchup. And perhaps in a big game, they lean on the veterans, Nico Collins and Christian Kirk. Next up, we will, in fact, go in on Josh Allen, 31.5 over at DraftKings. That's what it was this morning, or maybe 2 hours ago. We are projecting over at fantasypoints.com 6 for 34. That's obviously very close, but we're also giving Allen the third highest rushing total on the board this week. So 34 yards, that's the third highest total that we have projected over at fantasypoints.com. Extremely tough passing matchup for Allen, who, again, was only 9 of 30 for 131 against the Texans last year. Oh, by the way, he had 4 rushes for 54 yards in that game. For what it's worth, I even went back his previous game, which is way back, not under DeMeco Ryans, but back in 2021, he rushed 6 times for 41 in the matchup. I do believe the Texans are well equipped to slow down James Cook in the running game, as they give up the second lowest yard per carry average on zone concept runs, 3.41, which is a staple for him. By the way, over the last 5 weeks, Houston's given up the 13th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks in the running game. Cam Ward had his best game rushing against them last week, 3 for 33. Previous week, Trevor Lawrence, 5 for 35. Week before that, Bo Nix, 3 for 36. Even McCorkle Jones a month ago got 2 for 23 rushing. Next up, this is a weird one, but we're going to go for it. Ty Johnson, over 6.5 receiving yards. We're projecting 11.9. That's 83% higher. Texans give up the 9th fewest receiving yards per game, but they also give up the 3rd fewest rushing yards. So, it might be easier to throw on them. Over the last 3 weeks, he has seen 35% of their running back targets. He has 2 targets and 2 catches for 12-plus yards in 3 straight. He has caught all 6 of his targets for 97 yards in this span. I don't think we can count on more than 2 or 3 targets, but Johnson has long receptions of 61, 24, and 12 the last 3 weeks. Here's another weird one. Davis Mills, over 8.5 rushing yards. I liked it a lot more last night when it was 7.5. Bills are giving up the 7th most schedule-adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks in the running game. So the matchup is worth 0.8 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks' rushing production. You could argue it's 8 yards. Mills has 2 to 3 rushing attempts in his 4 games this year, and in his last 3 has long runs of 10, 14, and 7 yards. Last week, Baker Mayfield did not run a single time in his previous 3 games, but he ran 5 times for 39 for a tutty in this matchup, and we're projecting 12.3, which is a pretty healthy 35% more. And then finally, the under we popped out yesterday, Dalton Schultz under 4.5 receptions. I actually think that Cade Stover may catch a ball or 2, but over the last 5 weeks, the Bills give up the 2nd fewest schedule-adjusted fantasy points per game to tight ends, and they have been absolutely lights out against the position. So he'll probably catch 4, but I don't know if he's going to catch 5. And now I'm going to get weird for the Thursday night special. I'm also going to pop out a prop for a touchdown for this guy. Since the Bills are so bad against the run, I am hoping and I am betting that the Texans commit to the running game, have success. Remember Nick Chubb? It was announced today that Joe Mixon's not playing. Nick Chubb has actually been decent. And I like a touchdown at plus 500, which is a pretty good odd. He has 2 on the season rushing, and Woody Marks has 2 as well. But the actual special is maybe he pops one off. He has popped off some decent runs here. Maybe he gets a little bit more volume than expected. He didn't get the ball last week, but maybe that was because this is a short week and he's pretty much an old man. So it's not that big of an ask for him to get to 40 yards. And if so, that is a plus 305 payoff. That is what the Thursday night special is all about. It's weird, it's wild, it's wacky, but it very well could win.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at 0 cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.